The next presentation we're doing is actually our market update. That's actually the keynote presentation tonight. Normally when we do the market update, it's about a 5 to 10 minute presentation. This one's going to be a lot longer because it is the keynote for tonight. We've got a lot of stuff to go over. If you guys like facts, figures, data, that sort of thing, you are absolutely in the right place. So glad to share that with you because I am a junkie when it comes to this. I love to study this. I love to employ this in my business, so I know what's happening. So we'll go ahead and get started. The biggest driver for what we're seeing right now in terms of our growth in our real estate market is really the population that we've added over the last several years and that we continue to add. If you guys are wondering where all of these people are that are moving here every single day, I think the number's like 140 people. They are out there waiting for you right now on I-35, on MOPAC, on 360, on 183. We just put it in park for you until waiting for you to come out of this meeting. So this is one of the big things that's keeping our city going and growing. Our unemployment rate is also very low as well. We're pretty much right in line with the United States unemployment rate here in Texas, but the Austin unemployment rate is almost half of what it is even in Texas, and we've added a lot of jobs as well. If you look at the employment growth over the last year, you can see in Texas, in 2017, the numbers are in the dark purple versus 2018, year-to-date, the numbers are in the light purple. So Austin and Houston are leading in terms of the amount of employment growth, but Austin and Dallas are right in line with each other. So you can see that's where a large amount of the growth is coming from in our workforce over the last several years as well. The forecast from James Gaines, he's one of the top economists over at the Texas A&M Real Estate Center. And this is his forecast at the beginning of the year, and really much of it's holding true, so I wanted to just repeat it as well. Mortgage rates, yes, they're going up. Is anyone in here afraid that, well, mortgage rates are going up, that means housing prices are going down? Anyone's nervous about that? No? Well, some people say, like, I can see a correlation between those things. Well, mortgage rates have been going up for the last two and a half years, right? And what's happened with housing prices? They've also been going up. So I've got a graph in here that shows the correlation between mortgage rates and housing prices, and what we found is that there really isn't one. There is a very high correlation between appreciation rates and in-migration. So if we stopped having people move here, if we stopped having people have babies, then yes, we would see a decrease in our appreciation rate, but it's not necessarily affected by our interest rates. We're seeing more household formations, specifically with the millennial groups. That demand is starting to grow, but they're still constrained by debt, but they're supposed to be the next big group of buyers that we have. We are seeing sales volume growth year over year, but we're not seeing the same level of sales volume growth, for example, that we saw from 2011 to 2012 or 2012 to 2013. But every year since 2011 has beaten the prior year, so it's still positive, it's still strong, but it's not at that same rate that we had seen at the beginning of this recovery that we're in right now. Prices are up usually in the 4 to 5% range, specifically here in the Austin area as well. We're seeing lower vacancies and greater inventory in the rental market, but as soon as we build these new rental properties and a lot of these new apartment complexes, they are immediately leased, and we are constantly adding more. So we'll talk as we go through this presentation about the vacancy rates or the occupancy rates, as well as what's coming on for new construction when it comes to multifamily as well. Home construction, we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. That was the prediction. What's actually happening is it feels like a slowdown because home building just is not keeping up with the amount of people that are moving here right now. We are seeing an increase in cost of labor as well as increase in cost of land. Affordability this is the city within all of the major cities in Texas that sees the least amount of affordability, but that doesn't stop people from moving here, that doesn't stop people from buying here. I'll show you a little bit too about how our median income stacks up to the rest of Texas as well, so you can get an idea of what continues to support that. Days on market, specifically here in the Texas market, this goes back to January of 2011, which is roughly when the Austin area started to see the turnaround. You can see the days on market for the new homes is always a little bit higher than the days on market for the existing home inventory. Right now, we're in the 40 to 50 days on market range. Our historical average has been kind of in the 70 to 80 days on market. So right now what we're running is almost half of what we've historically been at. Housing sales, you can see it's indexed to January of 2007. So you can see Texas, even indexed back to them, has had a much higher growth rate starting at our turnaround, which was January of 2011. Versus the rest of the United States. It's primarily because the rest of the United States is moving to Texas, right? So that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of growth here, more growth than what we're seeing in the rest of the United States. And our business cycle index, this basically tells us where we've been and how we are going and how we are growing. You can see the leading index, which had us at our bottom in January of 2009 and had us starting to really kind of crawl out of it in January of 2011. We've had some very big highs. A lot of this high for the Texas market in general is driven by Houston and the price per barrel of oil going up to over $100 a barrel. And you can see it dipped back down in 2016, where we saw price per barrel going for under $40 a barrel. So that's a lot of what is affecting this number is what's happened in Houston. Since then, price per barrel has gone up to about $65 to $70 a barrel, and that's what's driving a lot of this growth here as well. If we take Houston out of it, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more of a steady leading indicator in terms of what we see for happening in the business market. Our employment growth ranked for the top 20 here, top 21 here in Texas. Austin's number 4, right up there with Dallas in terms of our employment growth rate, followed by Houston, followed by the state of Texas on average at 2.9%. Fort Worth a little bit below that at 2.5%, and then you see San Antonio, New Braunfels area still adding and still in the top 20, but only adding at 1.7% in terms of the total growth rate, June of 2017 to June of 2018. When you look at the share of all of the Texas jobs, obviously the 2 major cities, Houston, Dallas, are making up the largest percentage of the share of jobs, but Austin's coming in 3rd, and Austin's coming in just slightly ahead of San Antonio, so becoming a bigger market than even the San Antonio market. One of the things that we pulled from the Austin Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of the next couple of slides are going to be from the Austin Chamber of Commerce. I do warn you that Austin Chamber is kind of the cheerleading squad for the great city of Austin, so it's like, go team, every business should move here. That's kind of their, how they kind of pull some of their data. This is all true, but Mark Twain has a saying, lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? So we're going to kind of go through some of that. So fastest growing cities for the top 50 metro areas for the number of jobs added, and it's ranked not by the total number of jobs that we have. That's, you see Dallas and some of these other cities that are ranked lower, but again, it's ranked by the percentage change year over year. So it shows Austin as number 2 there. Again, versus some of the other areas here in Texas, Midland and Amarillo, when we look at the unemployment rate, are actually have a lower unemployment rate than Austin and Round Rock, but Austin and Round Rock at 3.2% through June of 2018, still pretty incredibly low. The government says an unemployment rate of less than 6.5% is full employment, so we're operating at more than full employment, double full employment, if you will, here in the Austin and Round Rock area. When you look at the rest of Texas, going back to 2010, you can see the rates were in the 7 to 9% range. You can see kind of Texas tracked pretty closely together through 2015, and then when, again, in Houston, oil and gas prices started to drop, you started to see some bigger unemployment numbers in the Houston market specifically, but you can see Austin has, for the last 8 years, been below every other major city here in Texas. For the most active large metropolitan areas and the number of building permits that we're issuing, and this is not based on a percent, it is based on the total number of building permits. So you can see, for example, year to date, let's look at year to date 2018. So you can see how Austin stacks up versus all of these other cities. And Austin is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of all of the major cities across the United States. That says a lot because Austin is not the 6th largest city across the United States, but we're building more houses than some of these much larger cities that are out there, which I think says a lot, and it also kind of corresponds to the amount of people that are moving here and the fact that we still have very little inventory. At some point, builders are going to overbuild this market. At some point, we will have some type of a market correction. It is just a technical matter of time. Right now, City of Austin, somewhere between 2 to 3 months of inventory, depending on whether you're looking at the City of Austin versus Austin and Round Rock. At 2 to 3 months of inventory, it's going to take us a minimum of 12 to 18 months to get us anywhere close to being at our market average, our 40-year average, which is somewhere between 6 and 6.5 months of inventory. And that's also would be if people stopped moving here, which is theoretically impossible, right? So this is not something I'm worried about, although it is something I do want to call your attention to. The most active large metropolitan areas based on, in terms of housing permits per capita. So Austin ranks the highest here when it looks at the building permits per capita. So that, again, is telling us that we are kind of getting in a preparation state of starting to overbuild. In the last market cycle, we overbuilt. Usually it's the production builders that overbuild in the suburbs, and it's us, the real estate investors, that are kind of the 1, 2, or 3 person companies that overbuild within the city. So production builders overbuild in the suburbs, we mess it up kind of in the city. So those are things that we look for, and you can see it here in the housing permits that some change is about to come, although again for the next 12 to 18 months at least, Austin looks really strong. When you look at the single family building permits versus the multi-family building permits, and again this is on a per capita basis, you can see that Austin is leading the pack there in terms of adding more, both the single family properties as well as the multi-family properties. And then again, our housing permits by area. You can see Austin was building many more houses in 2000. This is a result of the dot-com boom, and then you can see the dot-com bust here, and then it took us back to getting back in the last market cycle through 2006, 2007. You can see all of Texas took a hit in terms of the number of building permits issued in that 2009 timeframe. But if you look at the number, again, this is per 100,000 in population, Austin, as a percentage of that per capita, is building more than several of these other cities, and in fact some of the smaller cities, several of them actually even combined. So something to understand, look forward to, and understand how this is going to create a disruption in our marketplace probably in the next 2 to 3 years. Building permits specifically for Austin and the Round Rock area. This chart goes back to 1980. So again, you see the boom bust in the 80s. You see the boom bust that we had .com. You see the boom bust that we had in the last market cycle. And you can see that it looks like when we finish out the 2018 numbers, 2018 is actually going to be the first time that we will have built more houses than what we did at the top of the last market cycle, which is kind of an interesting point. Even though we've been selling more houses than what we sold in the last market cycle, we have not been building new houses, more new houses in this current market cycle until I think once we get the final numbers or as we finish out 2018. But if you just double basically our year-to-date numbers through June, in Austin, right now we are headed to be at a number that is higher than what we were, again, in this last market cycle here. We're looking at about 18 plus thousand building permits. Now that is building permits not just for brand new construction, but also for remodeling construction as well. But there's certainly a drive for it. Again, going back to the 1990, you can see our average price in 1990. Man, this just should make every single one of you say, I wish I would have started 10 years ago. I wish I would have started 20 years ago. I wish I would not have sold that house that I sold over that time period, right? But average price going back to 1990, about $150,000 versus average price today in the Austin Round Rock area, about $340,000. And again, you can see in terms of the number of sales, all the different market cycles that we've had over the years. And again, one of the things that I think is so very interesting is even though for the last several years we've been selling more homes than what we sold in the last market cycle, we're still only now in 2018, based on the year-to-date numbers and just doubling the year-to-date numbers, we're still only just now building more houses than what we built in the last market cycle. Another chart that I think is quite interesting, I know it's an eye chart, I'm going to sum it up for you really quickly by saying we have had a huge shift in the price distribution that we have here in the Austin area. This is not just for Austin, this is for all of Texas and all the major cities in Texas. If you go back to 2011, for example, about 55% of the housing sales that we sold were under $250,000. Going through 2017 and going into 2018 as well, only 35% of the houses that we sell in the Austin Round Rock area are under $250,000. So we have seen a big shift in terms of the distribution curve over by somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 just even over the last 5 years in terms of the average and median price going up. One of the things that they're very worried about is the affordability in this market and the possibility that we may be in a bubble. If you look at what we were in the last market cycle, we were in a bubble. We had a sales volume bubble, but we did not have a sales price bubble in the last market cycle. And this market cycle, we don't have a sales volume bubble, pardon me. A lot of the volume is organic volume based on people making good investment decisions and banks lending, albeit sometimes very frustrating, but their criteria being a little bit stronger, a little bit harsher in order to get a loan. But we are having a pricing bubble right now in Austin that is being driven very specifically by the amount of in-migration that we have, as well as by the lack of inventory we have. The lack of inventory combined with the increase in demand is causing and has been pushing for about the last 7 years, has been pushing all of our sales figures, sales prices with our average and median up, and that's why you're seeing that shift from 55% of our houses sold in this area being under $250,000 to about 35% under $250,000. Looking at the permitting for multifamily, again, if the numbers through June hold, no, you can ask questions. Yeah, what question do you have?
I was wondering if you're calling it a pricing bubble due to in-migration. It sounds stable to me. It doesn't sound like...
No, it was two things, in-migration and lack of inventory.
Okay,
so if we would have, if our inventory, if our build numbers, if our permitting numbers were keeping up with the amount of people that we had coming in, then we wouldn't be seeing our pricing distribution change so rapidly.
If they were, do you think that they will anytime soon?
Well, I mean, listen, builders are going to overbuild. That's the nature, right? That's how the cycle happens. If you look at the inventory levels over time, you will see that overbuild based on kind of projections based on people starting to build speculatively. Now, right now where we are in the market in terms of inventory, and I will only forecast out usually 12 to 18 months, but there's no way that we can build back the inventory to our historical levels which is somewhere between 6 and 6.5 months of inventory, and anything less than 3 years, and that would even be a major push. I don't want to really forecast out that far because all sorts of stuff happens in those types of time periods, but I will definitely guarantee that there's no way we could grow it back to that average level of 6 to 6.5 months of inventory in the next 12 to 18 months. Now they say anything less than 6 months of inventory is a seller's market. When you're in a seller's market, you see prices go up, and anything more than 6 months of inventory is a buyer's market. In a buyer's market, they say prices go down. A buyer's market here in Austin, prices are just, at worst, they're going to stay roughly flat, okay? Pardon me, does that answer your question? All right, great. And guys, if there's anyone here who is interested in joining the association, I think they're closing down the membership table. So if you're interested in joining the association, getting the benefits of membership, you can see Graham right out the door. Graham, will you wave? So Graham's in the red plaid. So if you want to get signed up for membership, get one of our real estate investor blueprints. Graham will help you right outside the door. Pardon me, he'll have you in and out. I'm going to continue this presentation, but we've got several iPads out there to help you get checked out, so you'll be right back in here. Pardon me. Does anybody else have allergies? Yeah, the driving wheels. I think I've got it recovered though. So building permits for multifamily, we're about to be in a similar position in terms of possibly overbuilding for multifamily, but based on, again, the demand that we have today, I think we're actually in okay shape. This chart goes back to 1980, so it shows all the building permits that have been issued since that time period. If you wonder, hey, why does every single apartment complex in the Austin area look like it was built in 1980? It's because it was, okay? And then at some point in 15 more years, we're going to say, if you're wondering why every apartment complex looks like it was built in 1980 or in 2018, it's going to be because it was, okay? So we are reacting to the amount, again, of people that are moving here. We're reacting to a little bit of the demographic shift of the millennials, for example, who are both renting and buying a lot of this multifamily asset class, looking to be closer in as opposed to in the suburbs, looking to kind of not maybe take on as much debt as their parents, who they may have seen go through some foreclosure or rough financial times from the last Great Recession. So this is a trend that we've been seeing not just here in Texas, not just here in Austin, but also throughout the United States. So something to look at as you're investing. Understanding the occupancy and some of the drivers for this. This is a chart from the ALN Apartment Data Association. So you can see through June of 2018, the occupancy rate here in the Austin area is about 90%. Usually once you get somewhere between 85 and 90%, people want to start investing and building like crazy in multifamily. That's what's driving a lot of these permitting that we're seeing right now. This goes through the absorption rate and the amount of new units that we're adding, average dollar per square foot that we're renting these properties for. And you can see going back, just on this chart only goes back to 2016, but you can see what the occupancy rate has been over the last several months, this line in blue here. So we got as high of an occupancy as 91 to 92%. We've kind of been a little bit up and down, and we'll continue to go down as we add more of this inventory that we're starting to build with this new permitting. So it is a very reactionary thing, and a lot of times with multifamily, all the people who are out there developing multifamily, they go to bed every night and they say the same prayer, which is, please don't be last. Please don't be last, please don't be last, right? Because the last person who gets their product out for sale or for lease is usually the one that's discounting the most, or you're seeing some kind of financial issues with some of those. We will, just like we will overbuild single family, we will overbuild multifamily. It's kind of, once you get some of these engines going, because some of these projects take years, there's no stopping them, right? You just are now released, your product is now released at a different time in the market. So that's why you do financial projections. One of the things our business coach taught us is always do best case, worst case, most likely case. That's why we do these market updates, to know what could happen at best and what might possibly happen at worst. Guys, I know this is another eye chart. I'll give you the summary of this. It shows occupancy rates in the Austin area, again, at that 90% range, right? So an occupancy at 90%. And then we show the cap rates for the city of Austin specifically. For Class A development, right now the cap rates are really, really low, 4.25% to 4.75%. Historically, in the Austin area, this number has been at least 6 to 10%. Everybody wants a 10 to 12% minimum cap rate, but the way that development has been happening here in the Austin area, the way that occupancy has been going, meaning everything's pretty much rented as soon as it's released. Right now we're seeing the prices go up. As the prices go up, the cap rates go down, so you're paying more per door than you ever had, and that's just kind of part of it. Even the Class B properties also have an incredibly high cap rate right now, so they're selling at very high multiples of their income that they're each being reported on. And this is not just for the Austin area. The same thing is true, for example, for Dallas, which Class A is 4.5 to 5%, and Houston, again, Class A, 4.5 to 5%. And then B, kind of in those same range, just a little bit higher than what you're seeing here in the Austin area. But I did want to just kind of give you that perspective on what's been going on when you specifically are looking at cap rates and valuations in the multifamily market. And a lot of what we do here is supported specifically by our unemployment rate right now. So going back to 2014, and again, this chart is a little skewed. So in 2014, unemployment, again, around 4.2%. Now it's, again, close to that 3% number, which is incredibly low, which is basically double full employment. So if you want a job and you live in Austin and you cannot get a job, something went really incredibly wrong for you. You just never see unemployment rates this low. But again, it's all the companies that are moving here, all the people that are moving here, that's really, and all the opportunity and all the job growth within the companies that are already here that's driving a lot of this. The market cycle, or the business cycle index for the Austin area, you can see it was above its long-term rate from 2006 to 2007. It went below the long-term rate at the bottom of the last market cycle. And then for us, our economy, or at least the housing market specifically, started to turn around in 2011. Right now, we are at kind of our long-term growth rate average. So we're not, and I mentioned this earlier, we were growing at a much faster rate from 2011 to about 2016, and then we've kind of been bouncing around our average, which is still, really, really good, right? And nothing to be upset about, but just to note that it's not as good as what it used to be. So Yogi Berra has a saying, the future just ain't what it used to be, right? So in this particular case, it's exactly the same with some of our leading indicators for the market cycle. So why are we the most expensive of the major cities in Texas? Well, because we can kind of afford to be here in Austin, because we make a little bit more money than the greater United States on whole, which averages about $26.92 per hour, and definitely as Texas as a whole, which averages $25.72 an hour. Here in Austin, we're just over $29 an hour, which is, allows us to push that average up in terms of our both our median and our average price, in terms of us being able to afford it. So Austin has always kind of been more expensive than the rest of Texas, and I don't see any of that stopping anytime soon. The value per door for multifamily has always been higher in Austin than the other cities as well. Price per land, all the same thing, all going in that same direction. High-tech service jobs, specifically for the Austin area. So you can see that index back to 2009, index back to 2010. If you look at our total payroll versus our high-tech services payroll, a lot of what is being driven in terms of the amount of jobs that we're creating is in high tech, and that is also one of the reasons why our average wage is higher, because more of the jobs that we are building and producing here are of this higher pay and higher tech. For the real estate market, looking at median house prices going back to 2005, you can see the growth that Austin has had in terms of the median price versus looking at it in Texas. We follow very similar cycles, but again, Austin is always more expensive and has been more expensive than the rest of Texas and even the major areas in Texas. Looking back over the last 5 years, you can see the distribution curve of where our housing sales are. So you can see, again, January, February, March, kind of the slower months, and then March through about August, we very much kick it up, and then it goes from August into November, where it kind of goes down. We usually have one nice little run up in December of every year, pretty consistently. You can see every year, year over year, we have beat the prior year's sales numbers. I don't know how we have been able to do that with the small amount of inventory that we've had and been kind of working under for the last several years, but every year we've been able to pull out a win. 2018 year to date looks like it's going to end very strong, but we still have about a half a year to grow. Last month we sold almost 3,300 homes, which was 3% less than what we sold last year, but year to date we're still up, and we're up 4% year over year. The median price, again, this is specifically for the Austin and Round Rock area, which is about 80+% of our sales. Median price $326,000, 5% more than what we were last year. Average price $411,000, 4% more than what we were the same time last year. New listings on the market, so we only added 4,100 listings. But again, remember that last month we sold almost 3,300, so we are absorbing, we are selling about 3/4 of what's put on the market every single month. The current number of active listings that we have in the area, just under 7,400. This means probably nothing to you until you get the perspective that going back to 2010, we had almost 14,000 homes on the market. And at that time that we had 14,000 homes on the market, we were selling roughly 18,000 units a year. So going back to 2010, we had somewhere between an 8 to 9 month supply of inventory, months of inventory, versus again today we're in that 2 to 3 month of inventory range. Yes, sir?
Is this specifically MLS or?
Yes, so yeah, no, just what's sold on the MLS. So there are transactions that happen off of the MLS. In fact, most of what we do is actually off of the MLS. But it can't calculate that because Texas is a right to privacy state, so we wouldn't know what it sold for anyway, especially if it was a cash sale. And even if it were a finance sale, we wouldn't know what the down payment were. So this is as close as we can get, yeah. Pending sales, which are our closest leading indicator to what closed sales will be next month, about the same as what we had in the prior month, so a very strong indicator for us. Days on market, 44 days, very strong. Normally this number is somewhere between 70 and 90 days at least. So again, this is basically what you're seeing in the Austin area, at least the hotter parts of the Austin area. You're seeing properties go under contract, same day, above list price, multiple offers, and in some cases sight unseen, because the buyer's got to get in their offer and they can't get out of work, but they're willing to risk option money and earnest money to be able to control it, at least for a little while. 2.9 months of inventory in the Austin and Round Rock market. Again, our historical average, our 40-year average is somewhere between 6 and 6.5 months of inventory. At 6 months of inventory, they call that market equilibrium, right? Again, it's not a buyer's market, it's not a seller's market, it's just somewhere in between. And then, oh my gosh, this is really tough to show, but this is the city of Austin. So we talked about Austin and Round Rock. Round Rock's kind of pulling down the curve in terms of average and median price. City of Austin specifically pulling up the curve in terms of average and median price. Average price in City of Austin, $466,000. Median price, $388,000. The big thing I want to show right here is that for the City of Austin, it's not 2.9 months of inventory, it's 2.1 months of inventory. The lowest that I've seen this figure over the last several years is about 1.8 months of inventory. So it's going up, but it's barely going up. So how long are the legs that this market has to grow? And the City of Austin specifically, gosh, a very long time, a very long time. Once you start adding the suburbs in, and the suburbs are usually the first market segment to go down once the market goes down, and they're usually the last market segment to go up once the market goes up, whereas the City of Austin specifically continues to kind of rise whether the rest of the market is going up or down. So that's one of the reasons why I want to break that out specifically. Forecast for the rest of this year. We should see year-over-year sales increase. Right now we're about 4% year to date. We should see that hold steady throughout the rest of the year and be in that 3 to 5% range throughout the rest of 2018. I'm sorry, in terms of for year-over-year sales. And then average price probably in that 5 to 7% range. So still very good, still very strong. We're not seeing some of the big numbers in terms of growth that we put up in 2013, 2014, 2015. But the good news that I have to share with you today, as my pastor always says, is these numbers are all positive, they all look good, and your outlook for investing for at least the next 12 months is really very strong. So I'll take questions. But I will say, some people ask me, hey, can I have a copy of all of your slides? And I say, yes, you absolutely can. If you make a donation to Habitat for Humanity for $100, I will send you my slides and my backup material for my portion of the presentation. This is a donation in your name, which means it is your tax write-off, not mine. But if you will lead with your heart, then I will give you all the work, which was a lot of work that I put into making this presentation, and share that with you guys. So thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I hope you got some valuable information in terms of investing, and look forward to seeing you at our next Investor Association meeting in the next couple of weeks. Thank you guys.